Welcome back to Bytes of Brilliance. I'm your host, Carsten Kraus, and today we have the honor to have Brian Kursar, CTO and CDO at Toyota and CTO at Toyota Connected. I believe you're also the board member there on our show and talking about, amongst other things, connected experiences and a lot of other great topics. So excited to have you here, Brian.
Yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. So yeah, I thought maybe we can kick things off just talking kind of about your journey to your current role. So if you wouldn't mind, could you describe your journey becoming CTO at Toyota and what motivated you to get into this field?
Sure. So I started off many years ago as a automation expert for a migration project at Toyota. It was 2001, 2002, I think. And I was hired to create automation scripts to test the system that was the vehicle supply chain system that would ultimately replace a lot of the mainframe systems and AS400 systems that we had back in the day. And so, back then, it was considered, going to the web and, doing VB6 were, high tech, and it was a super exciting place to be. And I think that started off my relationship with Toyota. I became a vehicle supply chain subject matter expert, started architecting and re-architecting a lot of the existing systems there. From there, I went into enterprise architecture and I learned about the gamut of so many different systems across the enterprise you name it. It was AS400, it was mainframe, it was, Oracle, Java, VB6. And I think there was a point in my career where I got very excited about data and what you could do with data and the opportunities on how data could really change the way people were being supported from a decisioning perspective. I think and being able to pull all data sets from all different places and put them into one, like dashboards. Back in 2008, that wasn't something that was very easy to do. And so I was tasked to evaluate different types of technologies and looking at, smaller companies. And so really my career, I think, to get to CTO started in data and data science. And I think, using my background in automation, and architecture, and really finding new ways to, I think, make data more accessible for executives, for managers, for line workers, et cetera. And that was I think a big thing. And then Toyota actually moved to Plano in 2010. And so I actually then took a role at Warner Brothers doing big data as the VP of all data global systems and architecture. We did a lot of stuff on the MarTech side. And then about 3 years later, I got a call from Toyota saying, "Hey, Brian, we're creating this new company called Toyota Connected. A lot of what has been done is based on the work that you did in data back in the early 2010s, et cetera. And, would you be open to coming back?" And I said, absolutely, because I love Toyota. Toyota is just such a great company to work for. I always tell people, I didn't leave Toyota. Toyota left me. And then I guess the rest is history. I joined Toyota Connected. I was a chief data scientist there. And about a year later, I was asked to take on a CTO role to help bring all the connected systems together. And then finally, maybe 2 years after that, I was asked to have a dual cap role across not just Toyota Connected, but Toyota Motor North America, which is really where I came from back in 2002. And so that was super exciting. And I've been kind of dual capped across both companies ever since.
Now that's really cool. And it feels a little bit, we have some similarities, not the companies, but everything is being kind of founded in the enterprise architecture mindset, looking at things, making sure you have kind of the foundation right, and apply that to different areas that you work in. So it's really awesome to hear what you've done so far. Are there any pivotal moments or mentors along the way that really helped you along?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's two I can recall. One is when I was working at Warner Brothers, what was most, I think, beneficial to me is watching how their CTO, Vicky Call, operated the organization. I was always very used to, I think, focusing on the tech and the code and the architecture. And the really, I think, interesting thing was that in addition to that, Vicky was really great at showing me the value of creating a company culture, right? A company culture where you're almost operating it like a family, where people are really leaning in to help each other out and really, I think, supporting one another. And that was one of, I think, the biggest things that, I think I took away from that role was just that, motivating people to be engaged, not just with the work, but with each other, and creating a very healthy kind of company culture was something that, I think as a mentor, Vicky really helped me unlock, and that's what I took when I started Toyota Connected. And I think the other really pivotal, mentor, I think, within my career was Zach Hicks. He was the ex-CIO, ex-chief digital officer of Toyota, the one ultimately that brought me back to Toyota. And one of the greatest things about Zach was really helping me see the bigger picture and helping me inspire others with that bigger picture, right? To really kind of challenge me to think bigger, always to think bigger, right? Not to just let the constraints of your current role stop you from doing amazing things for the company. And so I think between the two of them, I think those have been my really, personal mentors throughout my career.
Okay, no, that's really important, to have, folks that, can guide you along. I think a lot of listeners can relate to that. With that experience, how did that have an impact on your vision for Toyota's technological future?
Well, I think, I mean, just between the two mentors, I think it's just that, it was, to me, it allowed me to create kind of my strategy for how do I engage team members? How do I, really, I think, inspire people to think bigger, but also to do it in a way where, they are constantly collaborating with each other, right? I think seeing each other, having empathy for each other. I think, and that's another big piece of my strategy is that, as you are delivering, it's one thing to deliver, it's another thing to deliver in the right way, right? Where you are a respected leader, you've done things where you've acknowledged everyone's contributions, and it, because really architecture, software engineering, we can't do this alone, right? We need our support from cyber. We need our support from legal, right? We need support from A&F. And I think that that's one of the big things is just bringing everyone together, bringing really great technology ideas, seeing that bigger picture, not letting, I think, the current constraints limit you, but also, I think, bringing together people to really kind of act as a family. I think that, and really taking care of each other, to me, has been the secret to my success thus far. So
that's awesome. Bringing people together, right? A great segue in our next section, connected experience, right? And nowadays, there's so many devices that consumers, car buyers and drivers are interacting with, and their journey starts at home in the car and then ends at work or somewhere. It's a journey, right? So can you talk a little bit more about the evolution of connected experience in Toyota vehicles, is maybe both electric and non-electric?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that, the electric opens up new opportunities given some of the capabilities of the vehicle with, a post-ignition power. So for instance, you don't see a security cam being implemented in Toyota vehicles today because ultimately, right, they would drain the battery. And the last thing you want to do is, put a feature in the car that will drain the battery. And then of course that causes a big problem for the customers. But when you look at, the BEVs, their battery and power management infrastructure allows us to do so much more. And so while we've not released a security cam in, I can't say officially, that is definitely something that we're looking into, and it really, I think, I think it changes things. But, if you kind of go back, connected vehicles, to me, the most important features is that safety connect, right? The ability to, if you're in an accident and you're knocked unconscious, and the airbags have deployed the ability to get someone on the phone, through your speaker saying, "Are you okay?" And then if you're not responsive, sending that emergency response to that location based on the GPS of the vehicle. So to me, I think that's, the safety aspect and, and the expectations of the customer, to be able to dispatch emergency services. I think that's that's table stakes. That's the basics. I think that, that the connected kind of experience, unlocks. And then, of course, you get additional, convenience services. You get the, remote start so that, your car is warm if you live in somewhere, with, freezing temperatures, so that you can get into your car, and be able to, start your day, in a warm car, or even in some areas, right? They have these cold kits where, you ultimately have to have, the additional, I think, protection so that your engine will start when it's frozen over. So, super, I think, exciting things that are coming up, is just how do we interact with our vehicles, using the connectivity, using things like generative AI to further enhance, what we're calling in-cabin intelligence. I think that's, to me, the most exciting things that, connected started and is now starting to unlock for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I can, I can imagine that is a key aspect. And I did see, it had recently an article out there about, generative AI, and it's interesting. I think we have some questions for that later on, but this is definitely an area that we write a lot about at CDO Times. So with connectivity with regards to the future of the automotive transportation, is there like especially a play with electric vehicles? What would be like I guess the next 5 years of if we kind of look into the future?
Well, I think, the next 5 years, you're going to see a lot more things like in-vehicle compute. So a lot of the services that, we deploy, we're going to be able to do more efficiently and pass those savings on to the customer. We created, a product called micro collisions. And so, today there's kind of a standard, of when a vehicle is in a collision, the airbag deploys. However, when you are doing things like car share services, where you're renting it out, hourly to many different people over the course of a day, over a week, et cetera, you want to know if someone, was ultimately responsible for a micro collision. And so those types of things we needed to send to the cloud. It wasn't very cost effective. I mean, granted, the team did a great job optimizing for the cloud, but, it would be so much more efficient if you could compute that inside the car, not send anything but, a binary. Yes, I got into a collision. It was this level of a collision, right? And then, you're sending just a tiny bit of information to the cloud versus sending everything to the cloud. So I think in the next 5 years, you're going to see more services being priced significantly lower, because we're going to be able to do compute inside the vehicle. You're also going to see the intelligence of what a vehicle can do, increase. The virtual assistant is just going to be that much more intelligent. It's going to be, you're going to be able to have real-time conversations, and we're going to be embedding a lot of the compute and the ML and the AI jobs inside the car. So the latency is going to be a lot less. So it's not going to be, okay, I'm going to, ask it a question, wait a couple seconds till it comes back from the cloud. I'm actually get that response immediately. And that's what you get when you start doing things on the edge and embedded inside the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean that's very interesting. It's almost the edge compute is the car, right? And it's a driving technology platform, really, right? So in the last couple of years, I think I think Toyota actually has invested in a lot of these technologies for a while right now. So it sometimes seems like you have other companies like Tesla and others that kind of started with seeing the car as a computer. But when I read this article recently about you guys, I was like, okay, maybe you were not very far off, or in some areas ahead, right? So it's very cool to see that. From a technology perspective, what are some of the, I think you hit some of these areas. Are there any other outstanding customer experiences, immersive experiences that you're that you're working on to deliver that are currently there or on the future roadmap?
I mentioned generative AI, and that's an area that we're super excited about only because of what it can unlock for us. And so, we had a product that we were looking at, which was really a product that we would bolt onto our virtual assistant to allow us, almost like, I don't know if you've been to like a vacation on Maui. I went on one a few years back, and what was really great was they had this local app you can download, and every couple hundred yards it would give you the history of, like, and right before you make a right turn, this is the best lilikoi lemonade you've ever tasted, and it's a family farm that have been doing this for time and time again. And when I saw this, we talked about it internally. It was like, wouldn't that be great if you could provide, I think, drivers and a way to just know about their surroundings and what do the locals recommend. And so we looked into it, and we realized you would have to license hundreds of millions of dollars of content to be able to to geospatially understand everywhere where your car is, what is and this would have to be like curated content. Because you can just look it up online. But now with generative AI and the ability to summarize things, you could now start tapping into what's publicly available to provide kind of this additional context to wherever you are in the world. So, we're looking at how can these types of technologies really increase, engagement, but also, provide memorable customer experiences. And really that's what it's all about is, we have a solid product, but how do we get the customer immersed and get additional value out of the technology we're putting into that vehicle?
Yeah, that's so cool. It's, I was just imagining, taking a city tour, like a city that you don't know, you moved somewhere or you're on vacation, to your point, right? On you're just, okay, take me on a tour on all the sites, 2 hours time, can you plan a route for me? And
Yep.
that would be, I've never
Absolutely.
thought about that. That's pretty cool.
And those are the things I think that get unlocked with some of the newer technologies that are out there, and because, yeah, of course you can pull your car over the side of the road and, Google things and,
Right.
and create this trip, and, or find out, gosh, so I'm, this diner is highly recommended by locals, but, this was actually used in, for filming this movie. My gosh, this is, very interesting, but no one's going to pull over, right? You want to be able to provide that information in a digestible way. And I think the new advances in generative AI, are perfectly positioned for this. Or even, one of the things that we've already done is just this idea that, you're driving and all of a sudden a light comes on, and it's a vehicle with these squiggly lines. And so, customer may or may not know what that means, but the ability to say, hey, Toyota, what does the light with the vehicle with the squiggly lines mean? And, to be able to know that, that is actually a feature, when, you're in road conditions where there's mud or puddles, et cetera, right? And it's really the traction control. And I think that will put your mind at ease, just to be able to be that knowledgeable. And again, no one's going to pull over to the side of the road, look in the, this 500-page owner's manual and say, oh, gosh, okay, that's what that light means, but to be able to have that context and that intelligence right there, I think it's very exciting, because these weren't things we could easily do, even 6 months ago. And now my teams at Toyota Connected are unlocking this value, and we're now prototyping and we're now piloting a lot of this stuff.
Right. No, that's great. That's super insightful. How about AI? Obviously, is very interesting technology. A lot of companies are trying to figure this out and setting up their own large language model, and it's a lot of evolution happening right now at a rapid pace. So it's definitely space to watch. But there's like kind of the augmented reality, maybe even like an ugly duckling, like blockchain technology that nobody really can use or could not use. But maybe I was curious if you're using some of this maybe from a data privacy and security perspective and those things on your roadmap.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I think from so all of the above, so yeah, I kind of mentioned AI. Blockchain we use in our digital key solution, AR actually, not in North America, but in Toyota Connected India. They're doing amazing work on the heads-up display AR navigation, and we're super excited to see that, get released, in market. And then you mentioned privacy. Privacy is probably, the thing that we take the most serious, because when you unlock all of these features, at the end of the day, we want to be sure that we are doing it only to benefit our customers and only if our customers ask for it. And so we've gone above and beyond to implement privacy by design in everything that we make. Even to the point where, I always joke around, but it's actually true. It's like it's so much so that it frustrates some of the developers that just want to kind of put something together. But ultimately, we got to have that privacy by design as like a core principle. And then the other thing that we've done is that, we've actually created a privacy portal. So the moment that you get your vehicle, you download the app, you know exactly what is turned on. You have the ability to consent to more. You have the ability to turn things off. It's one of our core principles is that the data is owned by the customer and they are in control at all times.
I can appreciate that as an ex-CISO. It's almost like sometimes from an experience perspective, you want to have the car security system in place. At the same time, you also want to have your data privacy and cybersecurity in place, so you can go fast. Like you don't want to go on a highway without a brake system, without a security system. Same thing for data privacy and cybersecurity. So I like to use that analogy. I can definitely relate to that. So we talk about data privacy. Other areas in this space, are there any areas that you involved into, from self-driving vehicles and technologies that are, everything is kind of very closely related, and artificial intelligence and machine learning is used for that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are exploring. I should say, not Toyota Connected or TM&A, but Toyota Group companies. Woven by Toyota, for instance, is working on the autonomous side, and we work very closely with them.
So, obviously there's a lot of evolution happening in the automotive space right now. Are there any pitfalls or challenges that you can share or would give advice to companies that are trying to innovate in this space, or any kind of crossover spaces?
I mean, I think that, when we started Toyota Connected, a lot of the mindset was kind of from the on-premise world, on this is how I would do it if, I had the servers and they were there, and, and everything was, just ready to go, right? And you didn't have to worry about the costs because that equipment was procured. I think that a lot of companies that are just starting out, if they're a brand new company, they're going to be on the cloud day one. If they're an existing company that is looking to start innovating in the connected space and they haven't done cloud, my advice is that, what we did day one, this was, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, we designed assuming, right, that we would, design it the same way we would design it, on premise, same as the cloud, right? And that was a huge mistake, because the way you design for cloud, you are now, the engineer, right, has to take over and engineer it specifically for cost, right? For every fraction of a penny, right? For every second that service is being used, you need to justify, right? How many servers, right? Is this serverless? Is this running on Kubernetes, right? And I think that was, the biggest pitfall was that wasn't something that did 7 or 8 years ago. We learned our lesson very early on, and we're able to, I think, really kind of integrate a Toyota mindset, right? Of not doing anything unless it was absolutely necessary. Almost kind of that Toyota lean way of thinking, right? Or like a just in time, right? Only using cloud services when they're actually needed, right? And only when they're needed. So, I think that's probably our biggest learning opportunity, right? Was just cloud is different than on-premise. You've got to completely rethink how you architect for cloud, and consider even, what is the overall financial impact when you deploy something for tens of millions of vehicles, right? Versus hundreds of vehicles. You have to scale financially. So a design may be great for 150, 200, 10,000 vehicles, but when you start thinking about millions, right, the costs start going up, and you really have to rethink how you architect for a per VIN cost type of world.
That's amazing. That's amazing insight. Yeah, and we just recently wrote an article about FinOps, where it's really important. When you have on-premise, cloud, multi-cloud experiences, it's hard to, it's easy to lose track of what you have running, what you need to shut down, and designing for the cloud. Can you pool resources and things like that? So that makes a lot of sense. Another area that folks are interested in this regard, you looked at all the capabilities that you need to have from a resource perspective. What are the key skills to have in place to be successful, innovating right now in 2023 and beyond?
I mean, I think, you probably heard this before, right? Curiosity is number one. I think you have to be willing to experiment, and I think that you have to be willing to put yourself out there, knowing that some things may not pan out. A year ago, we started looking at metaverse. I think everyone, was super excited about metaverse, right? That's not really gone anywhere. And ultimately, I've told my team that's okay, right? Because we didn't want to be the company that didn't experiment early on and now is behind. So I think you always have to be curious, always have to be willing to have that experimentation mindset, knowing that some things may not ever go anywhere. At the same time, some things that do go where, like, so for instance, generative AI, we got into that very early on. As a result, we have an amazing team that can do amazing things with this technology. And it's even better than some of the agencies that are out there that, are trying to sell this. Internally, we have folks that are just AI experts, not just AI, generative AI experts that are actually unlocking a lot of value very early on. So I think, the advice is really, you've got to put yourself out there, you got to experiment, and you got to be willing to accept that not all experiments are going to pan out.
Nice. Love that. That sounds like music to my ears. So I guess, one thing that we kind of get to the end, sort of the end of the conversation here. And one thing that I started to introduce was to do like a rapid fire section of, I ask you some questions, and, either keep it, short and sweet, and then, just to get kind of your feel for these topics. So are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, sounds good. iOS or Android?
iOS.
Okay. Electric or traditional engines?
Oh, wow. I think I would do traditional, and only because I think that there's going to be a lot of learning from everyone throughout the industry. And so I'm kind of a, wait and see how other folks are doing in that space.
We kind of touched on the next question already, but autonomous driving, is that an exciting opportunity or a concerning challenge?
I think it's a concerning challenge. I think that we can solve how to make autonomous function, right, from a safety perspective, and do what it needs to do functionally. I do worry, though, that it's going to be cost prohibitive to be able to put it out so that everyone owns a autonomous vehicle. I just know how much data costs. I know how much network traffic costs, and I think that there's a lot of that needs to be put in the cloud to orchestrate. And so I think that, to me, it's a concerning challenge. And how do you make this financially feasible?
Right. Is there a book that you would recommend to any tech leader that they should read?
I think, this is the old one, oldie but good, Phoenix Project. I think that's a great one. All tech leaders need to know, I mean, the way it's written, it's kind of fun to read. It's engaging, but it kind of teaches you the bare basics of DevOps and Agile. So I think that's a really great one.
If there's one gadget is that you can't live without, what would it be?
Probably my iPhone. That's why I like iOS. I've been an iPhone fan since day one, and I could not live without my iPhone.
Right, right. Yeah, and I think, cars are becoming more and more like an iPhone too, with, doing a whole bunch of different things. And if you could have dinner with any tech pioneer, past, present, who would it be? I guess you could say future too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably, I mean, I know it's not possible now, but Steve Jobs, I think that he had a vision. He was able to bring the right people together, and it would just be very interesting to kind of pick his brain on how he orchestrated as much as he did, and was able to realize his vision. Because it's one thing to have vision, it's another thing to execute on that vision. And the devil's always in the details. And knowing, I think being able to talk to someone like that has been able to execute on their vision, I think would be very exciting for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great leader. I still see videos with bits and pieces of leadership insights that I keep on learning. So it's amazing. Before we end this fascinating interview, are there any last pieces of advice that you would like to pass on to our readers and listeners?
I mean, I think it's just that continue to learn, experiment. I still code, although not professionally, right? As a CTO, I haven't put anything in production in several years, but I find myself compelled to want to learn, right, the latest technology, just because I feel like that makes me not just more credible, but also I think that it allows me to have empathy for my software engineers, knowing what they go through and really being able to help, I think, guide them. Or if I can't answer the question, get them, in front of a person that can help them. But I think it's important to, as a technology leader, to be curious, to continue that research, to continue, I think, engaging and learning about the new technologies, because technology never stops. I think, you're going to constantly, things are changing, and gosh, I mean, things are changing. It feels like every, few weeks now, with a new paper being written, that unlocks something new in, the AI world, right? And so just, I think that being curious, being engaged, and being willing to, I think, take the time to continue that the education, I think, is so important as a growing leader, because you're not going to have the credibility if you don't understand the tech that you're representing.
Awesome. Before I end it, any final thoughts, or how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and yeah, I'd love to engage with folks that have questions about Toyota Motor North America or Toyota Connected. We are hiring at both companies, and we're doing a lot of really great work across the board: connected, supply chain, manufacturing, you name it. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff happening here.
Awesome. Well, Brian, thank you so much. It's been an incredible conversation. Thank you for joining us today, everybody. Thank you for sharing your expert insights. To our listeners, keep on innovating, and remember to tune in into the next episodes of Bytes of Brilliance.